All right, guys. So Captain Paul here, and today we're going to pick up our series on America's Great Loop and my looping experience. And just a little quick background for if you haven't watched any of these videos yet. Captain Paul here. I've done the America's Great Loop twice on my personal boat, and then I was a paid captain for some of it also for the next loop, basically. And the first loop, the last on this series, we stopped in Tarpon Springs. I just wanted to remind everybody that is a wonderful stop. It was worth the money because we are budget-minded loopers. So I think it was like $225, $250 a night at the state marina there. And we ended up staying there, and we had a great time. We loved it there. We stayed there for 2 days, loved the little town, loved the little city. A storm was coming, and I had talked to Harold and Karen, and they had recommended, hey, Paul, you got a storm coming in. Being in a budget-minded, I said, is there a good marina that I can tie off into instead of being on the hook for this storm this upcoming storm? And they said, yeah, why don't you go over to Kalidassi State Park, which was right outside of Tarpon Springs, sorry. So it was right outside of Tarpon Springs there. So that's where we headed after we left Tarpon Springs. And I just remember it's kind of a weird entrance getting in there. They'll tell you to follow the ferries. It's a little shallow getting in there. And it's also not made for the bigger boats. They can accommodate like 4 big boats, but you'd have to reserve that and get that on the end tie. We ended up staying there for about 4 or 5 days, and it's only like $40-50 a night, so it was really, really nice to get here in Florida in a state park, have full hookups and everything like that, which on Loop Princess we really didn't need. The only time we ever even plugged in at any marina is when we wanted to run our ACs, and at that time of year it was nice and cool out, so we rarely even plugged in at any of the marinas. But when we got in there, Loop Princess was a 36-foot boat, and I've actually been to the state park now 2 or 3 times on different boats, doing deliveries and stuff like that. But it really doesn't accommodate the big boats. Like if you're 50 foot, you can get in there, you can get it on a side tie, but I mean, you got to watch your draft, you got to watch everything going in there. But it was an inexpensive place to pull into and get refuge from the storm. And once the storm blew through, we were ready to leave there. But beautiful beaches. I think one time they had the #1 beach in the U.S. actually, and they were white, pristine, beautiful beaches over there at Kalidassi State Park. Anyway, so after leaving Kalidassi, pretty much just the standard run, but you got decisions to make because the Florida boating in Florida. We got a little bit of a late start, so leaving Gulf Shores there on April 15th. We had to. I think we had it made in our mind that we lost the keys once we didn't leave. Like let's say that middle of February, March date that we lost, and leaving April 15th, we kind of felt like we were behind the ball a little bit. So we decided to take the Okeechobee route. Now again, this was a mistake. You could call it a mistake or not a mistake. I had always planned to come boat the Keys and the Bahamas at a later date, which we have now. And so was it a big deal? Yes and no. I mean, if I was only doing the loop one time, I would have rather taken the time to get the Keys knocked out and maybe that trip over to the Bahamas. But we chose a Lake Okeechobee and to get on to the loop here for a couple of different reasons. One is, for you guys that don't know the background, we started the loop in Loop Princess, and then we ended the loop in Southern Estate because we actually bought another boat while we were on the loop. We found just a fantastic deal on Southern Estate. I couldn't pass it up. So we had that set up to meet in Delaware City Marina. So I don't want to say that I was on a time crunch, but I was in the back of my mind saying, hey, I'd like to get here by this certain date, which was only a couple months away. So it took the Keys away from me, basically. So we chose the path of the Okeechobee and using Lake Okeechobee. And now I've done Lake Okeechobee, I want to say 4 or 5 times. I've done it both directions, and I've done the rim and I've done the middle of the lake. You'll see some negativity on running Lake Okeechobee. You do kind of got to be careful out there. You can't. This is one place where you can't follow Navionics, especially if you auto routers like me. When you're coming out of the Okeechobee, there it'll take you to a route that you can't do. You'll run aground actually. So you have to follow the rim around. I'll see if I can find it right here and put the little chart up. But you follow the rim around. You got to go to the marina and then you cut across Lake Okeechobee. Or you can take the rim all the way around. It doesn't matter. It depends on how rough it is. I think it can get rough and nasty on that lake. I've never been on it to where I felt any threats of any kind. I remember the run that me and Bev did in Loop Princess, coming across the Okeechobee. We ran into a storm right before we got there, and the lock was getting ready to close because you only have a certain amount of time to get across there, and then when they can shut the locks down, you're stuck out there for the night, so you either got to anchor or whatever. And I just remember a thunderstorm came, a really bad thunderstorm came, just as we were getting ready to enter the lock, and the guy goes, "I'm going to close the door, this storm's coming." We said, "No, keep it open, keep it open." Anyway, he did keep it open, and we were able to get through the lock. But it got squirrely there for about 5 minutes. I do remember that on the Okeechobee. Our other run up there after we left Kalidassie State Park pretty much stayed in just different marinas. There's a couple. Pelican Bay is one I would have liked to have anchored in. We ended up going just past that to, we ended up staying at Cabbage Key. I really would have liked to have stayed in Pelican Harbor. I've never stayed there. And it looks like it's just an absolutely beautiful anchorage. Even off all the trips I've done now, I for some reason I always miss that anchorage, and I always go back thinking, man, that was a beautiful one I missed and I should have done it. So pulling into Fort Myers there, we did stop at Cabbage Key. Really tight little marina, again, not made for the bigger boats. They can accommodate one, maybe two. A little bit tricky getting in there, but not a big deal at all. Once we got up the next day, then we started going over to the Lake Okeechobee. Another couple things about Florida, again, is like, do you do Lake Okeechobee or do you do the Keys? If I had it to do all over again, and I was only doing the loop one time, I would absolutely 100% do the Keys. And you have to make those decisions when you get to Florida, or when you're in Florida, that whether you're going to do the Okeechobee or whether you're going to do the Florida Keys. Just remember, when you leave Fort Myers, and you're going to do the Keys, you're pretty much on the outside. There's no inside protection from there. So it's a pretty much a one-day run from, I've done it again several times now, but once you leave Fort Myers, you got Naples, Marco Island, and then pretty much the next day you're in the Florida Keys. Or for you guys with the fast trawlers, you can pretty much do it all in one day. I've also done Fort Myers to the Dry Tortugas. We just left 6 o'clock in the evening. We were there at 10 o'clock in the next morning. I've done that on now a couple of other different trips, not America's Great Loop. But just remember that it is an open ocean crossing, basically, just like the crossing you did coming across there. So it's for you guys that don't enjoy being out in that open water, then maybe a good decision is to use the Okeechobee waterway, because it's not too bad and you're pretty well protected. The Okeechobee can get nasty. I remember we were coming out of the Okeechobee, passing through that last lock, and we got into a little thunderstorm, and that got crazy for about 10 minutes. I do remember that, but it wasn't bad. The Okeechobee wasn't bad. Again, I've done the rim now. I've done the center of the Okeechobee. I've done it both ways. And the Okeechobee is nothing to be afraid of. And for you guys that want to do it and you want to stay inside, it's a great way to go. When we got out of the Okeechobee there, I did make the mistake, because again, doing the loop the first time was nothing but mistakes pretty much. But I came in, I was stressed out from doing the Lake Okeechobee. I was tired, and so we pulled into the first major marina there on the right hand side, and what I should have done is gone around to just one more corner, one more bend here, I'll show you on the map, and gone around to the city moorage field, which I really love. We ended up staying there a couple nights. We stayed at that marina for one day, and I didn't know I literally had to go another 500 yards up around the corner, and I would have saw that mooring field. And that's where I would have stayed for the entire time that I was there, probably 3 or 4 days. We just got some supplies and stuff like that. and it was a really good mooring field. I absolutely love it over there in Stewart area. That's where the Flemings are sold. Anyway, so the next big event was you come through Stewart there, and then that's all intercoastal. Beautiful ride up the coast there. You're going to see beautiful homes. You're going to just stay in the ditch. And all the way to the end of Florida, and that's where we're going to stop this video today. Here is at the end of Florida. One of the big ones that I kind of regretted once I got out of the Okeechobee there, and we stayed in Stewart there for a few days, was Cape Canaveral, because we ended up staying at the mooring field at one of the littler marinas over there, and they didn't have a whole lot of moorings, but they had a few moorings over there. And the only thing that I regretted or would feel different, even today, I've been past it now, and I've been to that same place probably about 10 times. And I always want to see a launch. So if you can schedule it and you get to experience that launch, that would be freaking very cool. And I think it's something I will do one day, because that's how much, I really want to do one and see one of those space rockets take off from Cape Canaveral. So that's something. Just when you're planning your loop and stuff like that, you can look at the schedule. I didn't know any of that at the time, but now I do. You can look at a schedule and see. Every time I go by there now, it's like I miss the launch by literally about 2 or 3, like a day or 10 hours or something like that. So one of these days I'm going to plan it. I'm going to plan on just going up there to do a launch. After you get out of there, you got pretty much Titusville. I've stayed at the city marina there. I've stayed in the mooring field there. When we were looping, we stayed at the mooring field, but I have stayed in the marina there on probably several occasions now. Titusville's a nice little stop. Got a Home Depot. Everything's close there. And I believe they have a car for you too. So just something to think about when you're over there. No, they didn't have a car, but there was a guy there that helped us. We were able to get in his car, and he took us around for a few. We had to run to Home Depot to pick something up. Not on the loop. This was on another delivery. So anyway, it was great. Titusville was good. Then you're in the canal pretty much. So it's all protected water, and all nice little stops. They're just all the marinas. I don't remember anything it was all nice. It was very cool. The whole state of Florida. I think you pull out there in Fernandina, and I may be saying that wrong. But that's your last little stop there before you get into Georgia, and that's where we're going to stop the video today, because then maybe the next video we'll take it from Georgia on up to Charleston, talk a little bit about that. But all in all, the big things to remember in Florida: are you going to do the Okeechobee? Are you going to do the Florida Keys? If you're only doing this once in your life, I recommend taking the time to do the Florida Keys. They're pretty easy. Pretty laid back, and it's worth the side trip to do the Florida Keys. I don't think you'll regret it. I would just go all the way down to Key West, spend Bright City Marina there. I don't know, it's $250 a night, $300 a night, but one of those stops. Or you can anchor right outside the marina and buy a dinghy pass to come in and use the showers and the facilities. I've done both now. In Southern Estate, I've done that both ways. And it doesn't really matter which way you do it. I mean, you can do it for $40 a day, or you can do it for, I think the nightly rate there was less than $300 a night, so it wasn't too bad at all for that type of atmosphere. And then you get to experience Duval Street and all that stuff, which now I've done it several times, so it's a little novelty to me now. But then when you come up the coast there, you got Newfound Harbor, Marathon, and then you jump out over to Key Largo, and you're over there in the Hawk Channel. Then once you get back into the Miami, so you can go from the 7 Mile Bridge, you can either go on the inside or the outside. Again, I've done both of them several times from the Keys. And if the weather's rough, I go on the inside. If the weather's good, you can just stay out in the Hawk Channel. You got to kind of commit though, and you can only do one or the other. You can't do both on the same trip, because once you make that commitment from the 7 Mile Bridge, there's a couple cut throughs, but they're limited, and boat height matters and everything like that. So the mistakes I made were the big ones were I would have done the Keys if I would have planned more time and done the Keys. and the stop in Cape Canaveral, lining up the space shuttle. Just a quick recap here. Besides that, I think, Florida was a home run, and I think you guys will love it. It's a great part of the loop. It'll deserve a lot of time. It's one of those states that you're in for a very, very long time. You got good support there for boat, fuel, all that stuff. Grocery stores. Not so much cars for, like the marinas that have cars that you can run to the stores and stuff like that. I don't remember anything in Florida, but you do have good support through the Great Loop organization. Those people will come out and help you anytime you need it. Anyway, peace out. I hope you finding these videos informative. You got any questions? You need any help? Just give me a call, man. I'll get to you as quickly as I possibly can. Captain Paul, peace out. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Share it with your friends. I do appreciate it. And Patreons, thank you so much. I do appreciate you guys very, very much. Thank you guys. Bye.